Okay, so in the last video we made a website, navigation bar, dash header at the top, carousel. We set up a little article area here, and we put in some thumbnails. We also put in a footer section down here. In the meantime, I did some changes. I changed some of the colors and border radiuses. I actually changed the logo and everything in the website. Remember, we also made CSS rules for each area. Just as a reminder, we made a CSS rule either for the thumbnail or the column area. And through the CSS designer, I can go back there and make changes. I make a CSS rule or selector here. Then I can always come back later and make changes. Remember, we have the bootstrap CSS, which had all the original rules, pre-made rules. And I'm going to try to avoid using that and put all my CSS rules on a separate sheet here. This one I called Pizza CSS. And once again, I'm on my thumbnail rule. I can change the background color if I want. I can center the text if I want. I can add padding to the top. Still in that thumbnail rule or column rule, whichever one we made. And I can put some padding on the top. And try 20 pixels padding just to push that image down a little bit. There we go. See, there's some space at the top here. Just give a little more breathing space around that image. You could do border on your thumbnails. You could change the text color, the fonts, anything you want. You can do box shadows. That's up to you. And you don't have to have any background color or any of those additional things. You could just use these for the structural use, just for layout, and have a clear background. All right. Well, what I also added since last video was some different bootstrap elements, and I'll review how I did that here. Okay, so remember we had an article, and in our DOM panel I can click on that article tag, and you can see here, not on video but between the two videos here, I didn't show you how to do this, but I added a jumbotron. Let me show you how to do that right now. I'm going to click back on my article tag, and I'm going to go to Insert, and there's Bootstrap components, and there's a few pre-made ones. We already looked at the nav bar and the carousel. We added those. We added some images. I can also add a jumbotron, and I'm going to add this before my article. It's up to you. You can edit wherever you want. And it looks something like this. It should say "Hello World," some text here, and then a button. Now I already made CSS rules for this guy, so I made the rules to center the text and stuff. Yours will probably be set up with the text over here. Once again, if you want to make rules for that, go back to my CSS designer panel, click on that jumbotron or jumbotron tag or the jumbotron itself. Remember, add your CSS selector. Well, here's my rule that I already made, and all I did was center some text, put a margin on the top if I want space between them. I could put some padding on the top if I want to move that text down a little bit. I could come over here, highlight that text, and change it. I can see that is my H1 text. I made a CSS rule for that. You could do that. Position your cursor within there. Add a new selector, and you get your jumbotron H1 rule. Then you can come over here, change the font, change the text color, whatever you want to do. I can also double click on the paragraph text. My computer's moving a little slow here. And change the paragraph text, and also I can make a CSS selector for that paragraph text like I did over here. The button, you can highlight that and change the button. You can make it a link somewhere, or you could delete it if you don't want that button. So this Jumbotron, you can add as much information as you want. I'm just gonna, just for the sake of time, I'm just gonna copy some of this text here. And paste it in here just so you can see that you can add a lot of text in here. So this can almost become like an article section also. Alright, so you can have a lot of text in there. I changed the background color through the Jumbotron CSS rule to green. I put a box shadow on there. I rounded a couple of the corners. I could put a border on there if you want. So that's all up to you. So that's the Jumbotron. And if I scroll down here, since the last video, I also added some columns and sections. They almost look like the thumbnails here, but I'll show you how to do this also. So I say I want a row of these columns between my Jumbotrons. Now, this composition and layout is up to you. You can lay it out like I did, or definitely do your own layout. So I'm clicking on this Jumbotron. There it is. I can double check, make sure I'm on the Jumbotron tag here. Alright, come on, computer, it's moving a little slow today. There we are. And I can go to my insert, and I'm going to insert bootstrap component, and I'm going to do a grid row with column. So I'm going to say grid row with column, and it's going to ask me how many columns. By default it's 3. I can make it 2, 4, whatever. I think I'm going to stick with 3. And I want this before my Jumbotron. And I'm going to say OK. Now you can see there's a light outline of the overall row. It puts in a row with 3 columns. If I look over here on my DOM, there's my row and my 3 columns. 3 empty columns. Good. So it's sort of like the beginning of making a thumbnail section. This thumbnail section we had before was pre-made, but it had the same type of thing, row with columns, and then I put a thumbnail section in there. Well, I'm going to come in here now in my first column. All right, column large 4. I'm going to insert a responsive image. I could do default, thumbnail size, rounded corner, circular. I'm going to do a thumbnail size. That's just a thumbnail image. It's not the whole thumbnail selection or section. I'm going to nest it in that column 4. And there we are. I'm going to go ahead and find a prepared image I have. And I'm just going to use this little pizza image here. There we are. With that image select, I could add alternative text, all that type of stuff. And I encourage you to do that. Okay, now I have that image selected. I'm going to insert some text. So let me go to my HTML. I'm going to insert H3. Sounds good. I'm going to do that after my image. There we are. I'm going to highlight that. Double click and change that. Do whatever you want. Good. Make sure I'm back in my H3. And I'm going to insert some paragraph text. And do that after my H3. And I got it in the wrong place. So I accidentally inserted in the wrong place. Command Z will undo that. Good. Make sure my H3 is selected. There we are. Ooh, a little tricky sometime. Can also select it over here. H3, there we are. Insert my paragraph text after the H3. There we go. Now it's in the right place. And highlight that. Change that text. Whatever you want to say. Okay, I can come back over here. I'm in that row, I'm in that column. And there's my paragraph text. And if I wanted to, I could go back to my Bootstrap components and I could insert any of these other things. I can also insert a button if I want. If I wanted a button in there, just like in the thumbnail sections we put in before had buttons, I could put a button under there. But I'm not going to do that for now. I'm going to leave that the way it is. Good, looks nice. I'm going to come back here to my next column and do the same type of thing. I'm going to insert to my Bootstrap component a thumbnail image. I'm going to nest it. Okay, I'm going to go back to my HTML. I'm going to insert my H3 text after that image. And I'm going to insert my paragraph text after that H3. Okay, then I can come back, click on my image, browse for my image, change this text, change this text. I'm going to do the same thing over here in this next column. Remember, I have these 3 columns inside this one row. Come back here to my Bootstrap, insert my thumbnail image, nest it. Good. Come back to my HTML, insert my H3 after, insert my paragraph text after. There we are. Once again, come back, browse for the image, change the text. Let me go ahead and save this. And I'm still on my index page. Okay, then I can select any of these columns, column large 4, and I can make CSS rules for this. CSS designer, new selector, return. It's taking a second here. You can center the text. Things move a little slow. Do a background, color, gradient, image, whatever I want. There we are. Put borders on that. And I can preview this. In the browser. Okay, so there we are. So quite a few changes from those first few videos. I changed the shape and color of the navigation bar. I added a few more links. I changed my logo. I added jumbotrons and did CSS rules for those. I made another row with individual columns in there. Within that, we added images and text. Another jumbotron. Made some more CSS rules for my thumbnails, and there's another row that I added before that wasn't during the video, but I added some rows before, and with that I added circular images. What I could always do is also add some padding on these columns so it moves the columns down and moves the images down a little bit. When they resize, you can see how these work when we resize the web page. We have our little sandwich icon here for navigation. Sliders resized. Jumbotron resizes. Columns rearranged. All right, so it's looking